welcome to Egale's video series on 2SLGBTQI family planning. I'm Aruna Boodram, and I'll be your host as we discuss family planning and assisted reproductive technologies for 2SLGBTQI communities in the Ontario context. In this episode, we'll be discussing Jamilah's question on financial considerations in family planning. Jamilah asks, my partner and I are ready to start our family through assisted reproduction, but we are worried about keeping costs contained. Is one path to conception cheaper than the other? Can any of it be covered through OHIP? Does OHIP cover fertility treatments? Thank you for these very important questions, Jamilah. Cost is a huge factor for most people when it comes to using assisted reproductive technologies and fertility clinics. Depending on what path you take and your family's fertility situation, costs can vary greatly. To map out the potential costs to expect, you will first need to know which type of assisted reproduction you plan to pursue. This means speaking to various fertility clinics, your family physician, and any other medical practitioners about your options. The information we'll be sharing in this video is specific to Ontario, and costs will vary from province to province based on health coverage. Due to the wide range of fertility journey options and cost variables, we will focus on most common ones used by 2SLGBTQI communities: artificial or intracervical insemination, intrauterine insemination, in vitro insemination, reciprocal IVF, and fertility preservation. If you are a resident of Ontario and have a valid health card, you are eligible to have some fertility treatments covered through OHIP. But before we dive into specifics, you should note that many assisted reproduction processes have multiple components, and each component can have its own cost associated with it. And just because OHIP covers one component doesn't mean that they will cover the others. Keep that in mind as we walk through each option together. First up is artificial insemination, also known as intracervical insemination. This is a common procedure that does not always require going to a fertility clinic if you have a known donor or access to sperm. If you do decide to go through a clinic, the procedure of inserting the sperm into the vagina is covered by OHIP, but any associated processes such as fertility drugs, washing of the sperm, or other related expenses are not covered and may be charged to you by the fertility clinic. For intrauterine insemination, or IUI, the procedure is also covered by OHIP. That said, fertility clinics often charge for associated processes that are mandatory, like washing of the sperm. Depending on how you get the sperm, there may also be costs you will need to factor in, such as testing your donor that needs to be done. Also, important to note, for both AI and IUI, OHIP has no limit to how many times you can try, but fertility clinics may charge you out of pocket each time, the associated fees not covered by OHIP. In vitro insemination, or IVF, is generally one of the more expensive options. We are lucky in Ontario to have one cycle of IVF covered by OHIP for people 43 years old and under. This means that the egg retrieval, sperm injection, embryo development, and each transfer of viable embryos are covered. Once you have used that covered cycle though, no matter what the outcome, no further cycles will be covered. The only exception to this rule is if you are going to be a surrogate for someone else. A major component of IVF that isn't covered by OHIP are the fertility drugs typically needed for the treatment, which can be in upwards of $4,000 to $8,000 depending on the clinic and your treatment plan. In addition, you will need to budget for time off work for undergoing the procedures, the cost of washing sperm to create the embryo, and any genetic testing you may want. If you decide to have IVF, you will want to sit down with the financial advisor at the fertility clinic you choose to outline all the costs associated with it. Every clinic has a different fee structure and costs can vary. Reciprocal IVF, R-IVF, is when one person takes their egg from their partner or other intended parent and creates an embryo and transfers the embryo back into the uterus to carry the child. Like IVF, OHIP covers one cycle for each person involved. Another important factor to bear in mind for both types of IVF is that there tend to be long wait lists at clinics due to the limited government funding they have for IVF cycles. Fertility preservation is where someone chooses to freeze and preserve their eggs, embryos, or sperm. OHIP covers this only if the person is under 43 years old, has valid OHIP coverage, and has a medical reason for fertility preservation. OHIP only covers 1 cycle per patient. Beyond OHIP coverage, there may also be other expenses to bear in mind. For example, if you are planning on using a known sperm donor that you are not having sexual relations with, there may be additional costs involved with testing their sperm and longer wait times throughout the journey. Cycle monitoring is another crucial part of most of these procedures. This is often required to get the timing just right for the egg and the sperm to create embryos or to transfer the embryos back into the uterus. There are limits on how many cycles are monitored, and depending on what the individual clinics require, you may need to pay out of pocket for that as well. Just remember, no matter what path you take, the cost of buying sperm from a sperm bank, any fertility drugs associated with treatment, incidental costs for donated materials, additional cycle monitoring, sperm washing, genetic testing, or any other tests that are outside of the prescribed OHIP coverage will need to be paid out of pocket or via private insurance if it's covered. You also may need to undergo further fertility treatments or take other supplements, drugs, or additional supportive therapies in order to achieve a pregnancy. So be sure to check those costs as well and what is covered by OHIP or your private insurance. When it comes to considering the financial costs of family planning, you have to be ready with all the information you can and be prepared for costs that you did not anticipate. It's important to remember that fertility clinics are for-profit, private businesses, and are able to charge above and beyond what OHIP covers. And you can find yourself billed for the difference. When deciding what path is best for your family, make sure to shop around and compare fees, look at the clinic's pregnancy success rates, and consider what factors are most important for you and your family. Planning a family is already an emotional process, and fertility treatments, fertility drugs, and the process of assisted reproduction can be daunting. Financial stress only adds to the hard stuff, but we are privileged in Ontario that many parts of assisted reproduction are covered by OHIP, but there are still many parts that aren't. To make sure you're not caught off guard financially as you embark on this exciting journey of planning your family, be sure to talk to each of the clinics you are considering, consult with your family or trusted physician, and ask lots of questions about any additional fees or financial costs. For more information and videos covering your questions related to 2SLGBTQI family planning through assisted reproduction, visit our program website at the link in the description below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us at Egale Canada on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.